Lesson, we're going to talk about setting up a sticky footer. So what I've done is I originally had the contact form up here. So I want to place my contact form right at the bottom of the page. I want it always to be visible. I like this going across the entire page. So I want to set this up, and I'm going to use CSS in order to do that. And this is what's called a sticky footer going into the code. So all I've done is I've taken contact form. So it has an ID of contact form from before. And all I've done is I've just moved it to the bottom of the page, but it's not really visible, and it is a call to action. It's something that I do want that users to be able to see all the time, because I want everybody to be able to sign up for my website, provide their name and email address to me. And this is why we're including in the sticky footer, and I want this always hovering and floating above. And the way that we're going to do this is using position. So first of all, I'm going to set a background color up for it, and I'm going to pick a really bright color, so something that is going to be very visible. And next, I'm going to set up position. So when I do position, you'll see that there's several options here. I've got absolute, I've got fixed, inherent, relative, static. So I'm going to select fixed for this one, and I'm going to refresh it, and we'll see what happens. And we see that it's actually disappeared off of our HTML document. We don't know where it is. It's fixed, but the location hasn't been specified. And this is when you used fixed, you actually have to use an additional value to position it. So we can do something top, we can do 50 pixels from the top, refresh that, and you see that right now it's going to stay within that 50 pixels from the top. We can also maybe do left 50 pixels, so just to keep it spaced properly, but still it's kind of hovering over our content, and maybe going at the top isn't the best way to go, because we really have no way of knowing how much of their browser they're going to be showing. We also have an option to change fixed. We can go position absolute. So just show you how that works. So this was fixed, so it always stayed within the same spot. When I refresh it, nothing looks different initially until I start to scroll down, and we see that it stays in this absolute position. So 50 pixels from left, 50 pixels from top, and it's always going to stay there. And absolute means it's taking it from the absolute page size. So it's calculating everything that you have. It's not taking it from what your screen size is, where the fixed is. It's taking it from the content of the page, and it's keeping it within that position. So that's not what we wanted here. We wanted actually to use that fixed in order to really position it. So top wasn't really working out, so I'm going to change that to bottom. And the same thing from left and right. We can do left, right, and really get to position that. So right now we're positioning it at the bottom left, and it really still doesn't really look good, because we're scrolling and we see that we've got this kind of box in the middle. There's some content that possibly under here, and we can't really read it. So if you are going to do a sticky footer, I advise you do a width. So I'm going to do a width of 100%. So that's going to keep it a fluid width, and refresh that. So now it's starting to look a little bit better. And one other thing, I'm going to just change this to 0, and I'm going to change the color of the text to be black. And now go back out, refresh it, and we can see that right now this looks a lot better, because it just looks like I'm not left wondering what's over here. I can see that this is staying at the bottom, and we're just assuming and treating it as if our page ended here, our screen ended here, and you've got this ability to have this constant call to action that's always visible. And this is very useful when you are creating your websites. So always take advantage of these types of CSS styling values that you can place, and they can be really effective ways to organize your content. So you're probably wondering, okay, well, we know we moved it all the way to the bottom, but what if I had it somewhere at the top where I actually had it before? Just moving this over, and I can see that now it's back within the container. So question is, now I've moved it over, but I'm still using this fixed position, and I'm actually positioning it. So where do you think this content is going to show up? And if you said it's going to stay where it is because it's fixed, you are correct, because it doesn't matter where you place this now within the page, it's going to always be outputting it according to what the styling values that have been added in, and these are the styling values that it's going to go by. So again, when you are working with CSS, it's important to plan out how you're going to structure your HTML page, and really this doesn't logically make sense. If you want to keep it at the bottom, you should place it at the bottom, even though it doesn't need to be at the bottom. Just from a usability point of view, it's always good to keep the structure of the HTML working in conjunction with the CSS, and so that if you are checking back your code, if you've set up this website and then you've gone off and set up 10 other websites and you go back to this one and you initially open this up, the logical place to look for this code would be near the bottom. So you might not even be looking at the CSS at first. It might be in a separate file, and you might be looking at that HTML, and if you have to make a quick update to it, it just logically makes sense to place it at the bottom. So just from a design point of view, always keep that in mind, that you or other webmasters may need to look at the code, and this is another reason to use commenting. So feel free to comment away and use comments as needed within your CSS, comments within your HTML, and comments within your JavaScript as well, in order to keep your code more readable and your structure easier to understand, and just something that just makes sense, logical sense.